So I'm joined here by Ambassador Stapleton Roy. Thanks so much for being here. Let's talk a little bit about Obama's legacy in China. What do you think are some of the priorities that Obama has had in regards to U.S.-China relationships? And moving forward, what are some of the things that you think he will be remembered for in regards to U.S.-China relations?
Well, there's several things. One, I think that President Obama showed attention to all of East Asia, as opposed to just the North Korean nuclear issue and the China relationship, which has gotten consistent attention from various administrations. But for example, Southeast Asia got much less attention from the Bush administration. And President Obama, I think, had a more comprehensive look at East Asia because his experience in Southeast Asia meant that he understood that Southeast Asia was important, independent of the fact that China was a rising power. So I think that was an important contribution in his foreign policy. Secondly, I thought that he recognized from the very beginning that trying to have a constructive relationship with China was the best way to advance U.S. interests in East Asia. And he stayed away from the inclination to try to contain China, as opposed to build up cooperation with China in areas where our interests overlapped or were similar. And at the same time, he was active in trying to defend U.S. interests in areas where we in China had differences. So my basic assessment of the Obama foreign policy is that in East Asia, the fundamentals of the policy were sound. Whereas I have differences with the approach in Europe and the approach in the Middle East. But in East Asia, the question is implementation. I don't think you had to make a change in policy in order to advance U.S. interests effectively.
So looking forward, what would be some priority or something that you would like to see improve between U.S.-China relations over the next, 5 or 10 years?
I think it's very important for the U.S. president and the top leaders in China to know each other and to be able to discuss serious questions effectively. And I thought that one of the bright spots of the Obama administration, which didn't separate it because President Bush also had extensive contacts with China's leaders, but these were the types of contacts that didn't exist when I was American ambassador in China. And it was a real problem because if you don't have your president directly involved in issues of the magnitude that the U.S.-China issues are, then you can't manage them as effectively as you can if the president is directly engaged.
And so President Obama's approach, at the historic gathering in California where they rolled up their sleeves, took walks around and said, we're going to talk about the issues, you think that's a good approach, good relationship for them to have?
I want to get away from the 30-minute meetings, from the one-hour meetings. I've sat in on a lot of those meetings at the presidential level, and frankly, they're mostly a waste of time. There's an advantage in they're at least getting to recognize each other so they can pick them out of a crowd. But if you want to have a serious discussion on serious foreign policy issues, you can't do it in 20 minutes out of an hour in which each side has to raise certain issues, no matter how important they are, but simply because they're important to have raised them. And as a result, you don't have enough time to deal with the serious issues.
That's awesome. Thanks so much.